Hello, everyone. Have you noticed how any and all attempts to provide some type of security to Ukraine are met with opposition by Russia? They're called deceitful, they're called underhanded, they're called all sorts of things, completely leaving out of the conversation the fact that Russia invaded Ukraine and Russia has a long history of invading other countries and hacking pieces off of them. Honestly, I don't know why anybody listens to Lavrov anymore, uh, Russia's foreign minister. I mean, he's one of those people where if his mouth is open, he's either getting ready to throw up or he's lying. So one of the things that he said is that any military intervention by Europe will somehow infringe upon the rights of Russian-speaking population. That is bullshit. Nobody in Ukraine is in any way discriminating against the Russian-speaking population. How do I know this? Because my family, most of my friends there, former classmates, teachers, etc., are the self-same Russian-speaking population. You know what the big thing is, the infringement is that they are required to speak Ukrainian language just for getting around, getting a job, and so on and so forth. So for Americans, that's the same thing as, when you say, well, why don't those immigrants learn how to speak English? Even those who were born here to immigrant families, why do they still speak Spanish? That's the more common one. Or why do they still speak German? Or why do they still speak Hindustani at home? In any country, in order to get a job, get benefits, go to school, you have to speak the language of this country. The official language of Ukraine is Ukrainian. So basically, Russian-speaking population is required the same thing as anybody else who would come to Ukraine for any reason. And that is what Lavrov is calling the infringement of their rights. Once again, I'm trying to figure out why Zelensky would do a deal with the US on the rare minerals instead of doing a deal on the same with EU. Personally, if I were Ukraine at this time, I would disassociate from the US. I understand the US as an important ally, but that's in the past. US was an important ally. Now it's a total loose cannon. I would also like to see more details about the exact terms of this deal. Once again, I'm trying to understand, what is Ukraine getting out of this? Because we already said there were no security guarantees, nothing included in this. Anti-war protests take place in Russia, but once again, I'm trying to figure out where Russians stand on this, because on one hand, they don't want the war. On the other hand, if you go and watch interviews with Russian people, if you go read their comments on X, on Telegram, etc., they want Ukraine's capitulation. So they need to decide what it is exactly they want. Because if they well and truly want to end this war, they need to do something about that dictator of theirs. For a while, it was very fashionable in Russia to be upset with Ukraine because Ukrainians wouldn't come to Moscow and organize a Maidan like they did in Kiev. And I'm like, you guys are a much bigger country with a lot more people. Do it yourself. Figure it out. And then there's this is a piece by a Ukrainian journalist in today's Guardian, talking about how people of Ukraine feel about what is going on right now. And I agree with him. After all the massacres, after all the atrocities, after countless lives lost, civilian lives lost, even if as Russia lied about murdering Ukrainian civilians, all you want to do is freaking scream. I am so with him on this. As we watch all of the orders and statements coming from the White House, all of that nonsense about Ukraine being guilty of starting the war, all of that nonsense about the elections, totally leaving out of the conversation the fact that in the US there wouldn't be elections during a war either. All of that is just insane. And yes, as one of the citizen journalists who spent the last 3 years explaining all of this and all of that falling on deaf ears, I am tired of it too. This is a good article. I always recommend human interest articles. Pop over to The Guardian, read it, because this man is a professional journalist, unlike me. I have some writing experience, but not in journalism. So he explains this much better than I ever could. The frustration, the shock, the feeling of being betrayed and abandoned, and the question of where do we go from here.